From the Open Season Properties Studios, welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime. The world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as I say every week, we're the capital of the outdoors in America. It's October the 14th, 2024. Amazing that the time is flying that quickly. Good afternoon, y'all. We really appreciate you tuning into the show. It's really a very, very special time of the year for outdoorsmen and women all across the state of Mississippi. You know, we're reminded that this beautiful state is not just a place to live. It's a way of life. That's why SuperTalk Outdoors is here. It's about celebrating that. You know, from the rolling hills to the Mississippi Delta to the backwaters of coastal Mississippi, Mississippi is blessed with some really, really stunning landscapes. And man, we are connected to those landscapes. Whether it's fishing on the coast or on lakes and rivers across our state, or hunting in the woods, or just enjoying a quiet moment in the outdoors somewhere, these experiences are woven into the fabric of who we are as Mississippians. They remind us of our roots, and they keep us grounded. And in our moments in the outdoors, you know this, we're closer to God and our family and our friends. And man, do we share some stories. Many of those stories we've told 100 times before, and we still laugh uncontrollably. We are eating some great food, aren't we? I mean, we really are eating some great food, whether it's like at a place like Big Daddy's Soul Food in Shula, or some jambalaya cooked by my buddy Mark MacGyver Creech, or just eating some steaks from the grill. They ain't bad either, are they? The outdoors in Mississippi is about coming together. It's about friendships. It's about passing down traditions. These moments spent together around the campfire, we're creating bonds, and they remind us of the simple joys in life. That's so important these days in this complicated world that we live in, isn't it? This time of year is a special time. Because when we go hunting and fishing in Mississippi, we are experiencing some of the best in America. As the leaves start to turn and the temperatures start to drop like they're doing this week, we know it's time for some of the most anticipated seasons of the year. Deer hunting, duck hunting all over the state, and redfish and speckled trout fishing on the coast. There's nothing quite like an early morning chill with your head out when you head out to your favorite spot, when you're in the woods that come alive with the sounds of woodpeckers and crows rustling in the leaves. You know, you might even catch a glimpse of that big buck that you've been dreaming about. But even if you don't, the morning still will overwhelm your senses. It's the ultimate meditation. And then going back to the camp with the smell of deer sausage cooking, wow. You know the feeling. You've been there a bunch of times, just like I have. So whether you're spotting a deer in the woods from a tree stand with your grandchild, or listening to the calls of ducks at dawn with a group of laughing friends, there's a sense of soul-cleansing wonder in experiencing Mississippi's outdoors up close. You know what? It should teach us all a respect for God's green earth, and it should serve as a great reminder of the importance of conservation so that our kids and their kids can have those same experiences. For so many of us, the outdoors is really a sanctuary. It's a place to escape the hustle and bustle of life. It's where we find peace and reflect on our lives, and we recharge our batteries. And as my friend Will Primo says, it's a time when we can be in a prayer. Man. This time of year is a good time to appreciate what the outdoors means to all of us as Mississippians. It's not just about recreation. That is for sure. It's about connection to God's creation. It's about family and community, and it's about a deep-seated appreciation for the beauty that surrounds us here in the capital of the outdoors in America. That's what the outdoors means to us in Mississippi. And I want to thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. So now let's start this week's adventure with my friend Lake Pickle. Lake, how you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm fantastic. You know, you said a lot of things just then that obviously was resonated with me. But I tell you what really, there's a couple things. One of them, we all know, probably all of us have looked at the forecast this week. Wednesday morning, it's going to be 43 degrees. If for some reason I couldn't hunt Wednesday, I think I would put on camouflage and walk in my backyard just so I could feel it, you know. The
Isn't
other
that true,
thing is,
man? Hey,
you were
listen.
talking.
Well, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, you made a mention about telling hunting stories that you've told hundreds and hundreds of times. Man, I cannot tell you the number of deer and duck stories that we tell this time of year. Some of them I probably have told or have heard 100 times, and every time I hear them, I laugh just as hard as I did the first time I heard them. It's almost like it takes you back there a little bit. But yeah, it's a for a sportsman in Mississippi, this is a special time of year. Special time of year.
Listen, I've been enjoying watching you. You know, we previously reported, and we had you on the show to talk more about it. But the Speak the Language podcast, you guys own it now, and it's exciting to see what you've done with the show. And it's all about that. It's about, first of all, some it's just getting around a campfire telling stories in some respects. You guys have started doing some deep dives in your podcast to really go deep into certain subjects. But you're trying to cover it all. It's very Mississippi centric, but at the same time, it's covering subjects that are applicable to the over 1 million downloaders that have happened along the way from people all over the country. So it's got to be fun celebrating the outdoors through a podcast like that that's so popular.
It really has, man. It's been such a blessing. Jordan and I worked on that for quite a while, and then we're working on it still now, but just in a different way because we're rolling out new episodes. But that new deep dig type of episode that we're doing has been kind of a newer endeavor because we had done some more analytical style episodes where we would from time to time bring in a biologist or just more in-depth subjects, but making a conservative a consistent effort to do these and talk about subjects. And so far it has been pretty well tied to Mississippi from Fannie Cook, who one of the most impactful conservationists we've ever seen in this state, arguably the country, in my opinion. And then the last one we talked about the history of our deer population. But yeah, we've had a lot of that. And I've said it before on here before, and I'll say it again. Most of the time when I say it, you're modest about it, but you were a huge help in kind of directing me and Jordan as we were trying to get ownership of that podcast. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I had a lot of time in digital media world, so sharing some wisdom with you guys was something I was honored to be able to do. But I'm glad you have it now because it's really making a difference. And it's, again, you're speaking to a national audience. You're proclaiming to the world, in a lot of respect, why Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors, which is what this celebration is about each and every week. We chat a little bit about this before the show started, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes from doing a show like this or doing a podcast like Speak the Language podcast. It's so much responsibility. For example, when you do a deep dive, and I found this true myself, when I'm I'm talking about a number of subjects, and there's been so many over the past 4 years, but something like chronic wasting disease or why it's important to manage a deer herd or why we have to continue to be focused on conservation when it comes to wild turkeys, or whether it's how policy happens in the state and focusing on the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks Commission, whatever it is. You can't go halfway there. You got to go total immersion. And what that means for me, honestly, Lake, is that it makes me better at doing this show because I'm learning as much about the process as my guests are from listening to my guests talk about it. But it's just it's an awesome responsibility, number one, but it's such a pleasure to learn so much about what it takes to enjoy the outdoors. And that's a great journey, isn't it?
Man, yes. For example, the Fannie Cook episode, I felt almost a conviction to do that because the more I dug into that woman's work and her life and kind of one of the things that we hinged upon, it was not that long ago. We're not talking about something that happened in the 1800s. And the common theme between that episode and the Mississippi deer episode, we have things, a lot of things going on today in that involve the wildlife of Mississippi. CWD is a big one. Some of the things that happened in the past with the commission that you and I talked about at length that have been a big one. And so kind of one of the factors that I was leaning towards in talking about Fanny Cook or the history of our deer population is I was like, man, I just think we would grow a better appreciation for that kind of stuff by understanding where we came from, by understanding that it's crazy thing about now. William McKinley told us there's over 1.5 million deer in the state now. We almost wiped them out. And so just learning that kind of stuff, it makes you appreciate it more because you better understand where we came from.
Well, I agree, man. And learning sort of the legacy of wild turkey repopulation and so on. It's just a great story. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with really popular podcaster, Lake Pickle. We'll see you after this. From the Open Season Properties studio, welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. Listen, Open Season Properties is a full-service real estate company with a team approach philosophy that ensures your needs are of the highest priority, whether it's rural land sales, residential, or commercial properties. Open Season Properties markets and sells real estate in Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. And they're dedicated to the development of a long-term client relationship and unwavering commitment to service. Go to openseasonproperties.com to learn more. Now let's get back to my friend. I called him the popular podcaster. I should call him the jack of all trades because he's not only got the very popular podcast, Speak the Language podcast, but also he works with OnX, one of the most popular apps in the United States for hunters. And then he also works with Open Season Properties. You're literally a jack of all trades, aren't you, Lake?
Well, if you were to ask my wife, she would just say it just keeps me real busy. But but no, man, it's Open Season has been really fun to work with. I crack a smile every time I tune into your show on Monday and hear you say Open Season Properties. Newer company, but we've grown a lot. And I know, you just had Jordan on here, and Jordan has done outstanding with that and puts a lot of focus on that as well. But they're a really good company to work for.
Yeah, I'm excited to have them as a studio sponsor. And the show, I get so much feedback from this show, man, from across the state of Mississippi, from people of all walks of life. It's cool how people kind of tune in on Mondays to pay attention. It gives them an opportunity to enjoy, just enjoy loving the outdoors, which is really what this show is all about. Now we'll talk about issues from time to time, but for the most part, most of the time, we're just going to talk about enjoying the outdoors. Listen, one of the interesting things about the 3 farms that I have the opportunity to hunt on is that we haven't, with one or two small exceptions, we haven't planted a food plot yet. We've been waiting. It looks like we got a little bit of rain in the forecast 2 weeks, and then within 3 weeks should rain pretty good. But I used to rush to get food plots in, and over the time I've just learned that it's better to wait. It's better to wait and get a good rain forecast in front of you. So we go from kind of very wet scenario to pretty dry scenario. We figure if we can get them planted we'll start doing some drilling this week, but start getting them planted now, that by November and into December and January, we'll have beautiful food plots. But how are you doing?
Man, it's like with food plot wise, to be honest, I've done virtually no food plotting this year. And part of that reason is, like you were saying, between OnX podcast and Open Season, I've just been stretched thin. And then I lean really hard on my compadre Jordan because I believe that's all. Jordan has been welded to the inside of a tractor ever since like September, but he's got so much ground and stuff that he works on that he's been doing a lot of planting and then covering, but that's one thing that we talked about it. I can't remember which episode it was on, but in Mississippi, because of the way that our climate is kind of sort of, you can plant a food plot in September, and if you have rain on the way, you can have one good and early. There's really not a whole lot of closed window in there. I mean,
Yeah.
if you time it right with the rain, you can have a food plot. There was a time back in the Kudzu Bluff days, we didn't plant until November because that's when we got moved over there. We didn't have a choice. I think it was like the first or second week in November, and late December, January, we had food plots to hunt over, so it's
Yeah.
just kind of something that we can make work.
On 2 of the 3 farms we have, the farmer worked very well with us and left us strategic soybeans everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And as you well know, deer love soybeans. So that's going to be interesting. And we'll be planting a 5-way seed around around that soybean that was left. And we'll have a good season. We're not worried about it at all. It's just, to be honest with you, it's a fun time of year. We're adding a mud room at our camp this year. My buddy Mark has been burning the midnight oil getting that done. But there's always something to do. And again, when you're together, I remember the last time I was there, which is not this past weekend, but weekend before last. And one of those stories that I talked about at the beginning of the show that's literally been told 100 times. I had the most joyful, deep-gutted laugh I have had in a long time. I couldn't catch my breath. The tears were flowing. Man, that's what it's all about. That means, that means stresses are coming out.
Yeah.
And you're getting that wonderful reminder why we're there. But that's pretty cool. So, hey, tell me about it. You've done a couple of deep dives recently on your podcast. Give me an idea of one of those that you've done.
One of the ones that are out already?
Yes.
Okay, so the most recent one, we talked with William McKinley, who you're familiar with. I know he's been on this show. William is the deer program coordinator for the state, and we covered kind of the history of white-tailed deer here in Mississippi, and just to kind of condense that, if you look at our deer population now, we're talking about super high numbers. I think the statewide deer harvest for last year was to over a little bit over 279,000. All right. Back in the Fannie Cook days, which was right around 1932 when the commission got established, statewide, the entire state of Mississippi estimated 1,200 deer in the entire state. And so somehow we got from 1,200 deer to being able to harvest over 279,000. And that didn't come by a mistake. That came through very, very intentional conservation work that was funded by hunters, outdoorsmen, sportsmen, people who value the same thing you and I value. But it's crazy to look at the pendulum swing because, William shared these really, these pictures from back then. And what they would do is there were certain areas in the state, most of them along river systems like the Mississippi River and the Big Black, where they still had decent numbers, and they protected those areas. And then when those areas grew numbers even more, they would trap deer there and then relocate them to different areas in the state. And so there's pictures of a deer that had been trapped at like Leaf River WMA, moved to somewhere else in the state and turned loose. And you see this picture, this old grainy film picture, and they're releasing the deer. You can see the deer running across, and there's a crowd of people watching. And they're not just watching it for the spectacle. They're watching it because they explained it's like they just wanted to see a deer. They were like, "Oh my God, there's a deer in there. I want to see a deer." And you think about that now, people were like, "Oh, these deer are eating my flower beds, man. They're killing me." It's crazy, this. And so the whole kind of the premise behind that, like I was stating earlier, is it's like you can't really appreciate where you're at if you don't know where you came from. And so we have our demographics. We have a lot of younger hunters and younger folks that listen to that show. And that's what I was telling William. I was like, I'm 32 years old. I'm like caught in that middle of like, some consider me still kind of young. To some people, I'm geriatric. If you ask someone in high school, but if you get a little bit younger than me and you don't know that history, it's hard to appreciate, now, all the does and stuff that you see running around. It's just trying to understand where we came from and seeing the efforts and conservation that was put in to get us here.
Hey, well, my son Jordan and I used to hunt in North Harrison County and Southern Stone County. We'd go hunt after hunt after hunt after hunt and not see anything. Mm-hmm. And now you can just about see something on every hunt in those areas today. So it's an amazing story. In fact, so successful that William believes strongly that we've done a great job of managing for bigger deer, but what's happened is people are passing more, and so the population continues to increase. And when chronic wasting disease, and we'll talk more about that on a future show, but when chronic wasting disease is real and slowly spreading, one of the most important things we can do is manage the population. So he really urges hunters to do their part. Kill the appropriate number for you that you can legally kill, and help us manage a deer herd. That's never been more important than today, has it?
For sure. And that was kind of, again, talking about the polarity between the two. That's how kind of William ended that episode, is he was like, guys, we have to kill more deer. Like, obviously stay within your legal limit, but I think the average was like a deer hunter is going to kill 2.5 deer a year, so somewhere between 2 and 3, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's like, stay within your bag limit, but just kill one more.
Just kill one more. Yeah. The issue with CWD, as I describe it on here, that first of all, it's real. Anybody who watches old videos, you might be confused about it, but see recent videos and you'll see that it's very real. But the reality is, it's not a cure, but we can slow it down. And the key is to slow it down and give science a chance to catch up. And one of the best ways to slow it down is to manage the deer herd appropriately. We know what that takes, and every hunter has to play their part. It's also fun just to hear y'all jabber back and forth on the podcast, my friend.
I appreciate it. I get that a lot. Sometimes Jordan and I'll get off on a tangent, or he'll have some reaction to something, and I'll just laugh. And I'm like, man, I can't tell if that was dumb or not, but people seem to like it, so we keep doing it. It's a mix between heavy researched episodes and us, just being
sharing
us.
stories.
So, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Lake Pickle of OnX and Speak the Language podcast and Open Season Property. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to be joined by a guest that's been on the show before, Stephen Westerfield from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and we're going to talk about his special efforts. We'll see you after this.